So, after some contemplation and it's overall thinking about this peculiar situation that I find myself in and trying to find online, which I don't think is going to work. You have to talk to a real person because the way that the internet is controlled now, I'm not going to find something that proves what I'm saying or somebody who agrees with what I'm saying, because it seems like this situation wants to be taken as me being a complainer or me being unmotivated and a miserable person, when actually I'm not a miserable person. I'm not a complainer. I am ambitious. I don't lack motivation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me, except for the fact that I met a bunch of miserable ass people who are going through life making other people pay for the decisions that they made concerning their lives and how the condition that they have to live in while they're here on this earth. And I don't believe that's fair. And you always hear the saying misery loves company, but like I just tried to look up in regards to misery, and they're like, oh, complainers like other complainers. No, a miserable person does not have to be someone who's complaining. You know, that falls into it, but there are miserable people who are out there living seemingly normal lives, and you probably would never hear a single complaint from them, but they are destroying other people because they have been destroyed. And that's why I say misery loves company. It's just like somebody who goes out and catches a STD. That's why HIV and herpes and genital warts and stuff like that is still prevalent today, because misery loves company. If every person that has that disease stop spreading it, they stop having sex unless they're having sex with someone who has that disease, and they don't have children that have that disease, HIV would no longer be in existence. Fucking herpes would no longer be in existence if those people stop spreading that shit. Genital warts, it will no longer be in existence if people stop spreading that shit. But misery loves company, so they're going around infecting other fucking people. And you know, and I've been online and it says like how, thank God I don't have any of these things, but I've been on the internet and it's a story about this girl and this boy was born with it, and he had a relaxed attitude about it, like, well, you got it now. Like, they don't give a fuck. You know, I'm dying, so you gonna die too. That's misery loves company. This motherfucker is running around creating people, causing people to fall with the same illness that they have that's controlling their life. So they're no longer alone in this battle or whatever thing that they got going on. They're out there infecting other people. When really, if they just came to terms with it and made a decision, say, this is going to stop with me, at least I'm going to try to make it stop with me and stop infecting other people, then it won't be at the levels that it is now. And it will go away. And there are other people, they don't have an STD, but they are miserable. And they are horrible people. And they go around creating situations in other people's lives outside of the battles that the other people are already facing. And creating, having them be just as miserable as they are. And the crazy part about it is they end up usually getting some sense of joy out of causing another person's misery. So I'm miserable and I see you're doing fine over there, but I don't want you. They necessarily don't always not want you to do fine, but a lot of times it is malicious, even if it's conscious or unconscious. It is malicious, and they go over and they do things and manipulate situations and cause things to happen to where that the person that they encounter is no longer um living the life that they had prior, but now they have to deal with the misery that this miserable person has caused them to have. And that miserable person, and this is how misery works sometimes, that miserable person causes hell in your life. And when they're done, when they get their tinge of joy, they move on and they go out and they cause misery in someone else's lives. And they keep moving, they keep moving, they keep moving. They didn't probably try to forget, unless there is a tie like a child or something like that. But they have basically forgotten about the misery that they caused you, because they have created a long line of victims of miserable people, and they're just constantly moving through life, and they say, oh, people, what do they say, people who don't care live the happiest lives or something like that. They're not actually happy. They're just living off the temporary kind of placebo that they get from causing other people's misery, because it never lasts too long. That's why some people, it's a mental thing. Like if you put somebody in a jail cell, they're not able to deal with themselves because they have never actually taken that time to. It's like you can't escape who you are. In life, we have so many distractions. We have cell phones, we have other people, we have situations, we have things where it's on a constant move. So when you go into a jail cell, you have to sit down and it's just you. And some miserable people, some serial miserable people, will not be able to deal with that, because then they have nothing but time to reflect on what they've done and who they are. And some of them just don't give a fuck, and those people are psychotic. But the people where it does affect them, it's like it's unbearable for some people. They can't deal with it because it's a conscious thing. But when you're dealing with miserable people, it's not something that is to be played with. It's not just somebody, oh, I'm having a bad day and I'm going to look out, I'm going to look, and sometimes it's unconscious, I'm going to look for somebody that I can complain to. No, it's people out there who misery loves companies mean they are miserable, and they're going to make sure, and if it's on purpose or not, by the time you end up finish meeting them or encountering them, you're going to be miserable too. And sometimes it's just a temporary misery, like, oh, they have a bad attitude, so they make sure that they ruin the attitude of everyone around them. And you eventually get over it because it's not something permanent. Or it's somebody who, like a STD person, goes out and causes you permanent misery, and they just move on with their life. They infecting other people. Or with some miserable people, like they say, a whore, I seen the thing, a whore goes out, and usually they say the whores find a husband faster than a homebody or something like that. It's like, oh, she's out there sleeping with all these people and she got married and blah 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 blah, and this homebody doesn't meet anybody, and you probably spend their life being alone or blah blah blah, like that's a bad thing, but spend their life being alone, when in actuality, like, that whore been through some stuff. I don't know how that it just applied, but then it just went away. So let me think. In the sense that a miserable person like what I said, that they go on and they create so many paths of misery until, let's say, they meet somebody who is equally like them. They're miserable too, and you could just have a miserable couple, you know, living a seemingly happy life, but their life is based off of their two personalities coming together, and they are happy because they are like a fucking tornado, and everywhere they go, it's a path of destruction. And then imagine if a bunch of miserable people with this same psychotic tendency or whatever, whether they're conscious of it or not, they go around and they all meet up together and they all have the same thing in common. Like I'll never forget one of the craziest things that I encountered when I was in Chicago. Um, was the best friend complex. All of these people call their best friends, but when you talk to them, you know, a lot of them did some horrible, dirty ass shit to each other. Like one girl I knew, she slept with her best friend husband and was actually actively fucking them. Um, Another best friend, they then like beat each other up, and other best friends then got each other locked up, and just all types of crazy stuff. And I'm like, that's not a best friend. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, that's not somebody you want to call your friend. A friend is not somebody that hurts you or you know what they're capable of. That's not a fucking friend. But that's what they consider a friend. Somebody, you know, would do, who then did some fucked up shit to you, and y'all just became cool. No, that's not a friend. That's not somebody that you want to keep around you. But that was like the common theme. Like, if somebody said that this is my friend, we've been friends for 10 years, if you ask more and more questions, they have done some devious stuff to each other. Like, oh, she made me mad, so I set her house on fire and tried to kill her while she was asleep. But we're best friends now. That's not normal. But, you know, when you get groups of miserable people together like that, who feed off of, basically you could essentially say they feed off of that. That's their nutrition. That's and their nutrition, and that's like that tinge of happiness or whatever feeling that they get that makes life worth living for them. You know, they feed off of creating misery. So I think that what I ran into personally, or actually had preying upon me way before I knew it, was a pocket of, like, a group of miserable people, a pocket of miserable people where they're just going around like a fucking hurricane, and it's nothing but a path of destruction. And the only way that you'll be able to exist in this hurricane of miserable people is to be just like them. You have to be a miserable person who feeds off of misery. and and sometimes they do, they create, like, they bring the misery out of an individual, and they do all types of weird stuff, and they just live in misery, and it's so messed up. Misery don't just love company in certain situations. Misery creates company. It will go out and seek you out because you aren't their type of miserable, and make sure that you are miserable no matter what you do or how you do it. They want, and they will not be happy unless you're miserable. It's not people that's complaining like, oh, life is just woe is me, and why is this, and blah 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 blah. No, it's a saying that say, before you diagnose yourself with depression or say you're depressed, make sure you're not surrounded by fucking assholes. And that rings so freaking true, that these people, like, it could be a innocent person, a generally happy person, and they run and they walk into this tornado or hurricane, a fucking miserable people, it's like, how do you get out of that? And the thing about that is you'll never be the fucking same. That's the thing about the hurricane of miserable people. And they're going to try to make sure that you'll never be the same. So they'll do some permanently damaging shit to you. Not just the tornado person who has a bad attitude. Well, no, that's not a tornado person. But not just the normal misery person who just has a bad attitude, and they transfer the bad attitude to you, and you know you angry for that 5 minutes, but once you get away from them, you cool. Or your misery buddy where y'all just cry together about some shit, you know. But I'm talking about like real miserable people who do real miserable shit, and where misery really loves company. And if not just love company, it's creating company. Like that person who has that life changing illness, and they're gonna make sure that you have it too, because and then not only make sure you have it, they're gonna make sure they're gonna move along like that hurricane or like that tornado and just leave a path of destruction. And you may not be of any significance. You're just a temporary feed, appetizer for their thirst of fucking destruction. So when you encounter them, you won't have that attitude. They're gonna make some life-changing adjustment to you to where you're miserable as they are. Forever. There's no escaping it. And you know, I could say so many things like, oh, you know, you should see them when they're coming, but those type of miserable people aren't the people that you see sulking around, because they're not sad, they're not angry, they're not sitting there complaining. They are out there getting their joy off of making other people miserable and ruining lives. And 9 times out of 10, because of the type of misery that they create, you won't see it until it's too fucking late. Until you're one of their casualties of that lifetime misery. Like that girl was talking about, oh, I just, you know, I was in college and I was living my life and I met this guy and blah, 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 blah. And we were together, and then all of a sudden I went and took an AIDS test because I felt ill and found out I had full-blown AIDS. And he told me he didn't have it, but I talked to his family member and he's had it since he was born. Like, damn. You know, that's some life-changing miserable stuff. But if he did that to her because she said he was cheating and doing all types of stuff, that means he done killed her. He done killed everybody that he done got in contact with and had unprotected sex with, because he's obviously not having protected sex. So not take away the STD and put it into someone who, let's say, a habitual baby father. There's some men, I ran into this man at one point in time where he had 11 kids by 7 different women. He was taking care of them though, so that doesn't actually, no, 11 kids by 7 different baby women, because he ain't no way that all 7 of them women was gonna live in a house together. This is America. This is not one of those other countries where that's normal. So he had 11 kids by 7 different baby women, mamas, and these women, ain't no way you in hell you could tell me in the conditions that he was living, even if you a billionaire, you gonna say that the women that you have these children by are not miserable in some aspect, because they are tethered to your ass by this fucking child. And they, you know, I don't care if it's every once in a while, but it comes across their mind. What if I didn't have this baby by this motherfucker? What would I be doing right now? It might not be a perfect life, but I wouldn't have this kid by this man, and I would be free to love and to live the life however I wanted it to be. The money is not everything. But when you think about miserable people, that man is not thinking about going out and just, oh, I'm going to ruin her life by having a baby by her. It's an unconscious thing. He don't want to be with her. He don't see no future with her. Or he's figuring it out, and he goes out and he makes a baby with this woman, and then he figures out he doesn't want to be with her. Oh, let me throw some money at her and spend occasional time with her. But really, you just feeding your misery. You getting your temporary fix. You say, oh, but you basically left a bunch of fucking casualties. And like I said, it's not always easily identifiable, because some people, not only like I said, they become misery creators themselves. So now you got this woman who's stuck with this child. She might have money, so she doesn't have material wants, but it's a lot of emotional things going on too. So now she can't date unless she's dating another. Even if she's dating another billionaire, her life is never going to be what she wants it to be, because she has this child that has her tethered to somebody else. So having joint custody or something like that, you still have to run back into this motherfucker who you have this kid with. When if you didn't have that child, it would just be you and your life, and you wouldn't have to deal with an additional party being present. And I don't care who you are or how you say it, that is very true. Because I just know from my personal experience that if I wanted to have live a life, and I don't care if he is a street sweeper or the owner of, I don't know, the owner of some great enterprise. He's a CEO and he's some billionaire somewhere. I don't want to. Don't nobody want to share that share. You don't want to sit here and say, "Oh well, I need to have this child go visit his other parent." That's an inconvenience. That is a major inconvenience. Oh, let me go have this child go visit this other parent, when it could just be y'all, and y'all could be the parent of the child, and there's no strings attached to that, because those are your biological children. Nobody wants that. So when you're people out here doing things like having babies by multiple people and transferring STDs, or doing all types. I mean, I'm trying to think of permanent things that you could do to somebody that can't be taken back, like some serial killer who gets joy off of creating amputees, or I don't know. But just like miserable people, that's on a more extreme. But actually, somebody creating amputees, and somebody giving STDs, and somebody having serial, that kind of falls into the same realm of misery loves company. Like, you're out there creating other miserable people that they have lifelong misery, and you get some type of joy off of creating that misery. That's a lifelong fucking misery, as that's not a misery that you can ignore. And usually when you do that type of stuff, like I said, it creates company. Those people can't ignore, they can't get away from it, so they are now miserable too. And you got a hurricane is coming and going. It tear you down, and then, oh, it's misery season again. You done tried to rebuild, I'm going to tear you down again. Oh, it's misery season again. You tried to rebuild, I'm going to tear you down again. You can't stop hurricanes. Hurricanes is a natural phenomenon. Their misery and destruction is natural to them. They're not, some of them aren't even cognizant of how destructive and how miserable that they are. It's just part of their normal everyday activity. Just out there creating other fucking miserable people. And not just temporary, like I said, transferring a bad attitude or having a pity party, but literally out there creating non-stop misery. And then they have, okay, pity parties. Oh, he did it to me too, or she did it to me too, or she da 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 da. Then you have people who enable these people who are creating this misery, and they're telling the people that, or because it's some people who aren't miserable to where they want to go out and create other miserable people, but they are speaking out and say, hey, this fucker or this group of people are out here operating like a hurricane of miserable people and leaving a fucking path of destruction. And they're pointing it out, say, hey, you don't see that? And there are some people who are enabling them, say, oh, well, maybe something's wrong with you. Because if it was just one person, then, oh, that person. But it's a hurricane. Oh, this hurricane, and instead of that, they say it's natural. A hurricane is natural. But no, this is a hurricane of miserable people. So that shit's not natural. That is not nature. To them, it is natural, but it's not natural because it isn't of the natural. If you understand what I'm saying. So we want to give you counseling and help you cope with this hurricane and miserable people, when in reality, you need to take that same energy and stop this hurricane and miserable people from creating more misery. Is nobody should have to deal with the type of misery that these people are creating. But what's happening in today's society is they see it, they attach a dollar amount to it. So if you think about a real natural hurricane, if a hurricane comes and it destroys so and so and so and so, FEMA comes in, that's billions of dollars. But that's also land that has been cleared for rebuilding. So then you think about people who attach religions to the type of destruction and misery that they have caused, because they have to rationalize it and make it seem like something that it's not, when it's because it's normal for them, and other people are gonna say you're fucking crazy. But when you run into it's so hard to explain. When you run into other individuals, they need to help them to question it. Oh, well, we're gonna attach this to it. In the Bible, it doesn't. In the end, it says, yeah, God is going to destroy all of the bad for the good to come back. But when you're dealing with the type of psychosis of that's associated with the type of people who are out here creating this permanent type of misery, it's a tricky ground. You have to be able to have discernment to see how psychotic they truly are, because for them, they can rationalize. They say at the end, think in the terms of, they say at the end, oh, we in the end, God destroys all of the bad because the world is corrupt for the good to come. Say, oh, wait a second, that's what I'm doing. I'm destroying all of the bad so that we can rebuild good. So now they turn their destruction, even though it's destruction in its essence and it's all destruction, there is no good that actually comes from it except for the good that they try to manipulate you to believe is good when in reality it's bad. They try to rationalize and say, oh, I'm destroying to create good. No, you are a psychotic, miserable person out there hurting other people. You are a misery hurricane, but you aren't natural because you are human. You are not a natural phenomenon. A hurricane happens without assistance, without technology, without anything. It's a natural phenomenon. If somebody was out there creating hurricanes and just destroying shit, that's not natural. And they are creating a fucking hurricane and destroying shit and trying to say that they're using from our basis knowledge and our understanding of certain things to try to rationalize it, to make it seem like it's justifiable when it's not. And there are people who are enabling it. But yeah, if you like, I went to a thing with Scientology, like I was saying, because I just got it mixed up, where they say, oh, we're gonna destroy to rebuild, but in reality, you're not destroying to rebuild. You're just a bunch of miserable ass people who are out there destroying stuff and destroying others. And now you've created something to try to justify your destruction and how you hurt others. You're not just passing along a bad attitude, you're chopping off limbs and stealing children and giving out uncurable STDs and diseases and stuff like that, and leaving destruction in your wake. But you say, oh, I gave this person AIDS and now they are an advocate against AIDS and they're out there spreading the message of HIV. No, that's not creation. That's not rebuilding. That's somebody that you destroyed, and they're trying to make the best of the situation, but eventually they're gonna die before their time because you gave them that sickness. And they can't go out and, let's say they find the person that's for them and this person isn't infected with this disease, they can't have children with them because of possible transmission. You just ruined somebody. You can't sit here and say that, oh, me having multiple baby mamas is rebuilding because I'm a millionaire and she wouldn't have, or billionaire, she wouldn't have what she had if she didn't have a baby by me. But you left her. So she goes out and finds a husband, and her husband are trying to have a happy lives by themselves, but they can't really do that because they still have this attachment to you, and a child needs to have their life with you, so that interferes with their life. And no matter how you try to do it, if you did not exist, if you did not have that relationship with that woman and have that child, and just leave her with it when you didn't already did it a couple times, or you was cheating on her while you was with her, or you knew in the back of your mind that she wasn't the woman for you, you could have left her without that kid. And she would have still moved on with her life and found the one for her, and she wouldn't have had that attachment to you, and she wouldn't have to constantly maintain that string, even if it's that one string with you, because that child is not biologically her husband's child. You destroyed that person. They can't have that perfection. They're always going to have that imperfection. You can't sit here and say, oh, I chopped this person's leg off and now they're in the Paralympics. So I rebuilt them. They would have never made it to the fucking Paralympics if I wouldn't have chopped their leg off. Well, if they are talented enough to make it to the Paralympics, maybe they would have been talented enough to be in the Olympics or be some type of athlete or do something else with their life. Maybe they are miserable as hell running, but they have to because this is the only thing that's going to pay them for having this type of disability on the level that they're getting paid. It's not a lot of jobs you can do when you missing more limbs or you have some major deformity that's going to put you at the level of somebody who is in, let's say, the Special Olympics and with mass recognition for their accomplishments and all this other stuff that comes along with it. So no, you didn't rebuild them. You destroyed them and they're trying to make the best of it. But I bet you if deep down inside they would love to have that limb back, to live their life however the hell they wanted to. That's not rebuilding. That's destruction. That's destruction. That's why when you the only and it's not destruction if somebody wants something. If some woman goes out, you're not destroying somebody if some unless and it's a thing called bad decisions too. If somebody go out and say, I'm a freak and I want to chop off my fingers because um I get pleasure off of pain, so they go and chop their fingers off and they bust their nuts or whatever, they get off of it. And then they think about it a year later, say, oh shit, I shouldn't have did that. I need my fingers. That's a bad decision. That's not misery loving company. They didn't go out and chop off other people's fingers. They chopped off their own fingers. And they got their temporary joy and they thought about it like, damn, I needed those. So that's not misery. That's somebody that's an idiot. Not an idiot because you never know what people do. But I'm just trying to think of an extreme situation to where you can understand where things like that happen. That's permanently life changing versus somebody causing destruction or somebody making a bad decision and misery loving company. Destruction, misery loving company can be put in so many ways, and it's not always a pity party where, oh, I want to complain and complain and complain and complain and complain. And it's not somebody's responsibility to make the best out of what you have done to them. They have to, because unfortunately somebody comes and fucks up your life. No, people don't care. Like, somebody come fuck up your life, it's your life. It's not their life. And that's why it's called a path of destruction. It's your life. You have to fucking deal with what these people have done. This person has given you this disease, or this person has disabled you by removing your limb, or this person has left you with these children or whatever. So you still have to live. But it's still a path of destruction, because if they wouldn't have removed your limb, if they wouldn't have never left you with these kids, or if they wouldn't have gave you this disease, you would have been out living your life. So it's not just a pity party. It's about dangerously miserable people. And some of them aren't even, and a lot of them are aware of what they're doing and how destructive it is. And that is, you can't attach religion to that to rationalize it. You can't attach this and that to rationalize it, because you're a destructive, miserable person and you're out there hurting other people because you are hurt. They say hurt people hurt people. You are out there hurting people because you are hurt. I shouldn't have to pay. I don't have to, it's not my requirement to give you my fingers because you chopped your own fingers off. Now you mad. That's not my fault. I wasn't there. If I was there, I would have told you, don't chop your fingers off. You're going to regret it. But I wasn't there. I was out living my life. So now you want to tie me up and you want to chop my fingers off to sew them back on your hand. And that's not right. That's misery out there creating company. And you know damn well you can't take my fingers, but you gonna try to anyways. Please stop. Stop doing what you're doing. Because you're a miserable fucking person out there creating company. It's not a pity party. It's not somebody giving somebody a bad attitude. I'm going to yell at you for no reason because I'm angry. You could get over that shit. Or it's people out here who are dangerously miserable. And they are going to do whatever they want to you because they are miserable. To get their little joy out of whatever they see that you have that they want. So I was online trying to get a better understanding of why these people are the way that they are. But when you put misery loves company, it's constantly saying, oh, it's a pity party. How to get yourself out of depression. How not to be sad. No, it's some psychotic people out there. It's not about how should I. It's about how to stop these people. And then if you are capable of identifying this type of dangerous, malicious person, rather they're the friend that's smiling in your face, or the person that has a knife and say, hey, I'm about to stab you and take one of your lungs for GP, like, how do you identify that type of person? And what's the best thing that you could do to protect yourself from dealing with that type of thing? Even if I would have read something like that, that would have been beneficial. But really, what I see is a bunch of enablers who are victim blaming. Say, oh, this person did this horrible thing to you. Well, maybe it's your fault, because no, it's not your fault that somebody out there with HIV decided that, like I seen this thing, this girl, she said she was, except for that's a whole different situation, but this does happen where you are out there practicing safe sex, but this miserable person wants you to have what they have. So they encounter you, and let's say you don't give it up easy. They pursue you for months or even years. They pursue you, and then they finally get you, and you say, hey, wear a condom. And y'all put a condom on. And y'all done had multiple interactions or whatever, and you like, no, and you in your miserable mind or whatever, you know you got this STD. You done slipped the condom off, and now you've infected this person. That's destruction. You are out there a miserable person destroying other people. And maybe if you didn't have so many people that were enabling it by telling that girl who waited years and used protection, but this person slipped the condom off, Instead of telling that girl who went through that, oh, it's your fault. Say that person is a destructive, miserable person and they need to be stopped. Because you did everything that you were supposed to do. But this person, rather it was malicious, just it was malicious because you messed up. You're crazy, and it's well, not crazy, because some people don't want to admit that they're crazy, but that you have this condition, or that this is wrong with you, and that this is wrong, or you're just psychotic and you just are trying to make yourself to where you're not cognizant of how horrible you are. And you go out and you pursue this girl for years. And then when you finally become intimate with her, you wait for your moment and you infect her and you kill her, essentially. You are a dangerously miserable individual. And there is no, oh, it's your fault. Don't be a victim. No, this person needs to be stopped. It's not a, oh, let me give you counseling to deal with what they did to you, and we're just going to set up a foundation for all the victims of this person to come and seek refuge or whatever. This person is running around cutting off arms. We're not going to stop him from cutting off arms. We're just going to make a center for people with one arm or no arms. That's not a solution to dealing. That's not a solution for dealing with somebody who's out here cutting off people's limbs. We're gonna build this building, and we know he's cutting off arms, but we're gonna make this building for y'all to come to stay with your cut off arm, because we know you're one of his victims. No, you're an enabler. You are enabling this person to let him go around with his hurricane of miserable people and create a path to destruction. And they done told you that, oh, these people wouldn't be working this job that you only have to do with one arm if I wouldn't have cut off their arm. No, that's not right. And I don't think any person in their right mind, if they have an idea of what a right mind is, would agree with that. Like, it's not that girl's fault. That man is a horrible person and he needs to be stopped. The person who cut off arms is a horrible person and he needs to be stopped. These people out here who are creating these babies with these women, and they know they don't want to be with them, are horrible people and they need to be stopped. It's like, oh, how are you going to criminalize something like that? Well, you can. That's why it's called, now they have things where they say, oh, this is this, but then when you say that's a crime, you don't want to treat it as a crime. If somebody don't pay child support, what do? They lock the person up. They say, oh, you owe this amount in child support and you haven't paid it because you went and you made this child with this woman and then you left her to be responsible for it. Or if it's two parents that are willing and capable or whatever, if it's two parents and one of the parents denies the other parent their rights to see the child, they say, oh, you are denying this other person the rights to see this child. We're going to lock you up if you don't let this person see their child, because that's their child too. It's a crime. It's freaking, you're gonna say one thing is criminal but another thing's not. No, it's a crime if it's a crime. Because it's a crime. And these destructive, psychotic, miserable people, I'm adding names to the label, hurricane of people, because it's a different type of misery. It's the pity party. Oh, we just want to complain because it rained today. Our boyfriends are, I don't know, whatever. Our boyfriends like to play the game all day, so I'm gonna cry to my friends like, oh, he's playing the game? Yeah, girl, he's playing the game. I'm so tired of this, and we're gonna have this pity party together. And then there are the dangerous people who are hurricanes of misery out here with a, because you can't miss a path of destruction for a hurricane. You can't miss a path of destruction for a tornado. You know that motherfucker's been there. There's no questioning it. Even if, like the trees, they're built to deal with strong winds. The trees done turned at an angle. They still growing fine. But you know that fucking hurricane has been there. Because trees, when they grow up, they grow straight up out the ground. The tree can grow at a crooked. That's people who, you know, they're victims of the hurricane. And now they just stuck like that. So now the tree growing at a slant. But that hurricane has definitely been there. And these hurricane and miserable people, with some of them having complete psychosis, just completely freaking psychotic, out here creating a path of destruction and leaving other people in its wake, and then picking up people to get bigger. So now you went from category 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 of hurricane of horrible people, because there are people who are capable or who are actively out there acting as individual creators of misery, creating their own company. And with some people who create misery, they want to ensure the misery. They want to know that, make sure that it's permanent. So they check up on the people that they've hurt and make sure that they're still hurting. And if they're not, then they go and create more pain. And something needs to be done about this. And it needs to be stopped. That's like, if similar to the person who got off for cutting their own fingers off. Now they're miserable. You was getting your rocks off and you knew it. I mean, even if you didn't know, I mean, if you looked it up to say, how can I cut my fingers off? Because I'm masochistic and that's how I get my rocks off and whatever. So you go and you done cut your damn fingers off and now you miserable and you trying to cut my fingers off. And you starting on your path of destruction. You think about somebody in a profession. I forgot what I was about to say. Because I'm mad. I'm so mad. Because this is a real thing. And to explain it, this is a real thing that's happening. And when I try to look online, or when I talk to other people who aren't misery creators themselves, they agree with me. But when I try to look online to try to see for references in psychology to address this type of phenomenon, it's like more so I find victim blaming. I find trying to tell people to cope with it instead of seeing it for what it is. Oh, it's not that, it's this. No, it is this. Like, it's plain as day, it's this. And that's where it caught a lot of people are left angry, or they're left confused, and they don't know how to adjust, because they're saying this is this clear as day, but when I go talk to this person, they're trying to give me everything but saying that it is, calling it what it is, giving this his name. This is a psychotic person. And say, oh well, you're attracted to that type of person. No, you don't have to be attracted to that type of person. You could be out. I could be walking down the street right now, minding my own business, and this person drives past on a car and they see me and they say, oh, it don't matter. It could have been anybody. Oh, there go a victim. Then they come back around this path of misery creators. They come back around and they hit me at 40 miles per hour in their car and then drive off. That's not being attracted. That's just somebody who is on a path of destruction. And you were just living your life, doing what you were supposed to be doing. You didn't get caught up. You didn't say hi. You don't know this person. But they're just on a path of misery and destruction. And you cross their path. There's nothing special, nothing. You just crossed their path. And they need to be stopped. It does not have to be attraction. You don't have to be attracted to them, and they don't have to be attracted to you. It's not some magnetic force. The only energy there is their destruction and their misery. Their misery has set them, and their need to create misery has set them on a path of destruction. Oh yeah, that's like somebody who, what I was saying, is somebody who's a surgeon, and for some reason they hate blood. So blood makes them angry, and they can't do another job because surgery is all they know. And even though for some reason they got some psychosis where they believe that they can't go do anything else, that all they can do is surgery. So they have this blood, this thing that they hate blood. So one day they get the bright idea, and they take a patient and that they've operated on, and it, like I said, it doesn't have to be anything special about that person. They're just in their path of destruction, and this person is beginning their path of destruction, and they say, I hate blood so much, I'm about to drain every drop of blood out of you. So that's what they do. When they get you on that operating table, they cut you. Maybe the nurse doesn't know or whatever, but they cut you and they make sure that you bleed out. And it kills you, of course, because who can live without blood? But their aversion for blood, as a surgeon, I don't know, weird things happen like that. But they hate blood, that they cut you so you bleed out. Because they want all the blood to be going out of your body. Because they hate blood. And they don't understand why. Well, they know why people have blood, but they don't want people to need blood. So this person is miserable because of the profession that they chose. And now they're out here creating not just misery, but that's kind of murder. But in a sense, it's like, you know, let's say the nurses run in and they give them a blood transfusion and they save the person's life or whatever. The doctor can't show that he's furious. The surgeon can't show he's furious or whatever, you know, because sometimes there has to be two surgeons in the room or whatever. But they give them a blood transfusion, so the person's alive. They survived their interaction with Dr. Nuts, Dr. Super Crazy, but that wouldn't have happened if you didn't have that miserable surgeon operating on you with the aversion, who didn't like blood and wanted to drain every ounce of blood from you. Like, I don't know exactly how to explain it. I think I've done it a couple times perfectly, but dealing with the type of people who exist in today's society, they will say, "Oh, you didn't explain it perfectly. What about this? What about this?" That's because you're psychotic too. Like, something's wrong with you. Like, it's clear as day that it's people out there. Like I said with the girl, she did everything that she was supposed to do. You know, let's say she even married this man before she had sex with him, but they still use condoms, because I saw a thing on there where married people use condoms or whatever. So you still use condoms. You married to them, and you don't know this whole time that they have HIV or some other messed up disease. And then they slipped the condom off and they done killed you. And then after find out they killed you, you find out that they done out here created other victims too. It's a bunch of people out here who have fallen into their path of misery. And they say, "Oh well, what if she would have just went and got STD tested and all this other stuff?" But what if she did, and he lied about the results? They don't have to disclose the results to you. That's patient confidentiality. They don't have to tell you shit. So it creates a situation where they have so many different avenues where they try to victim blame and make people feel bad because they were living their lives and maybe they did everything they were supposed to do, but they ran into this person who was on the path of destruction. So a person who is not trying to be an enabler for this type of thing, will understand. But if you are an enabler, say, "Oh well, what if she would have did this, or what if she would have did that?" Like, I feel the second that the condom comes off, or blah 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 blah, but she was married to him and they went and got STD tests and he supposedly gave her the results and lied to her about it and all this other stuff. And well, she shouldn't have been smart. She couldn't see the paperwork was fake or whatever. Well, he's good at doing that, but I just don't get it. She had to know something. She didn't see medication. What if he was hiding it? So many people, like, have whole different lives. So you can't rationalize because you're enabling that person's behavior. Because at the end of the day, no matter how they did it, they were wrong for what they did. I'm gonna pause it because this man playing music.